Right. Hello, good evening. First, yes. Can I? Thank you. Now, first of all, let me really thank you, Annie, for the invite, and Naomi for the assistance to coming here to the James Hudson Institute. And second, I would say, as a UN officer from the Food and Agriculture Organization, I would say that it's really important to congratulate the organizer on this event, because well, you all know when it comes to land question, land reforms, the bulk of the debate is always occupied by, for obvious reasons, some might say not very obvious, but by UN officers say obvious. The bulk of the debate is occupied by developing countries, no? Okay, donors fund the activities, and the UN and the FAO operates mainly in developing countries. And this in some way can obscure a little bit the intellectual debate with issues from heavy issues from high income countries. And today we had a presentation or content. We had a presentation from Canada, Netherlands, Australia, and Scotland. So that is really interesting for us. I think this debate on the land issues in high-income countries or contexts, I think is a very important debate to be brought to the International Conference on Land Reform, on Agrarian Rural Development. So I'm going to present a little bit of the update on what's going on with the conference, and also the contribution of FAO to the conference, plus some preliminary findings from the Global Land Observatory. I will explain later on what is this about. So a little bit of a trajectory from ICARRD to ICARRD. You know, FAO has been doing a lot of work on land, but actually two really fundamental moments when it comes to land reform in our history as UN organization. The first one was the 1979 World Conference on Agrarian Development, which took place in Rome, which after 4-day discussion delivered what was considered a very important document on agrarian rural development, the Basin Charter, which was a declaration of principle, but also program of action. But this was the, I would say, at the apex of the what I call, being land reform expert, land reform, let's say, land antagonistic consensus. Why antagonistic consensus? Because I think Fraser explained it well today in the morning, because despite the ideological divides across the Cold War and the post-war II period, despite the different ideologies, land reform, state-led land reform actually, as a way to move on progress and development, was an idea was shared for different reasons across the two fields, across the two camps. No? Fraser said today, the biggest land reformist land reform work done by the Americans in Japan, Korea, and with that also Taiwan, and to prevent, also with the Green Revolution, to prevent, peasants, enchantment with socialist land reform, and vice versa. But paradoxically, 79 is the apex, but the Peasant Charter won't be implemented. Then between double card and ICARRD, there is 20 years of another season happening, which is the season of neoliberalism and the emphasis on market-led land reform. So the Peasant Charter is something which is discussed, approved, and endorsed, but it's not really much implemented in the international agenda on land reform. There are sporadic land reform, but the period of big consensus for the idea that land reform was important for economic development was over. The emphasis now was on market-led land reform, and then integration of value chains into global markets. But then in 2006, I was there, the Brazilian government took the initiative to propose to FAO to do another international land reform conference, which took place in 2006. which issued a declaration. This conference was also accompanied by a parallel event by civil society. And finally, after a 2-year campaign by different NGOs, civil society organizations, social movements, grassroots movements, the government of Colombia, which is doing a land reform in its own place now, some discussed, took this flag and proposed and proposed to organize a conference on agrarian reform. And this is a conference which has technical support from us, from the organization, from FAO. The first conference was directly organized by FAO. These are I won't spend very much time on this, just to say that these are the thematic pillars of the conference. So it's not just about land rights, land tenure, land governance, but it's about agrarian reform, which is a good concept, of course, than land reform, food sovereignty and the right to food, big debate, big disputes, rural communities and as rights holders, which resonate, echo a lot of the contribution expressed so far today here in this occasion, women's land rights and empowerment and global land governance. These are the 5 thematic pillars of the conference, which will take place in Cartagena, Colombia, and February 2026. These are a little bit the goals are being identified by the Colombian government to promote the conference. First, we have to discuss global land governance in the light of the implementation of the SDGs. Different from the MDGs, you remember the previous MDGs, land has occupied a big space in the SDG. There are several land indicators, so we're trying to assess what the consequences were of the SDG, taking on board so much land tenure and land rights. Are we achieving those? We don't achieve what is impeding us to achieve this. Also to assess the implementation of the international guidance on lands, raise the profile of agrarian reform in the 21st century, and especially foster international cooperation on land reform, land issues, and land rights. But also how to create inclusive governance systems that really include rural communities, especially most vulnerable groups. And the outcome are very much about the idea to revamp again the international debate on agrarian reform, on land, or the importance of land, a number of issues, and the importance of agrarian for rural development, for sustainable development. And to set in place, because of this revamping of international interest in agrarian reform, to set in place the international institution mechanism to allow countries to cooperate among themselves, also farmers' organizations or indigenous people to cooperate among themselves to promote land reform. But also, the government of Colombia has really taken the flag of supporting FAO in creating the Global Land Observatory, which is a facility we are running. I'm going to explain this in a while. Along with the International Land Coalition and the French Agricultural Research Center for creating, generating data and knowledge on land tenure and land governance. Yes, thank you. A bit of the governance. There is an international technical secretariat with some countries, and Colombia, there is an advocacy committee composed of the main networks of civil society organizations. 200 invitations have been sent already to countries to participate. And parallel to the conference, there will also be an event by civil society, a big encampment with an exhibition of culture and products of small-scale farming, indigenous peoples, communities, so on and so forth. The outcome of the FAO is providing technical support to the conference as to the development of the final agenda, the draft declaration, which is being finalized now. It will be circulated among all member countries of FAO to collect inputs to arrive at the final consensus on the final declaration. We also will launch next week already a call for policy paper to contribute to the discussion in the conference, and also we will provide some insight on what can be the institution mechanism to follow up on the conference. Now, the Global Land Observatory, we're going to present the status of land tenure and governance in the occasion of the international conference. So I'm sharing with you some preliminary findings of this land tenure and governance, which is the main product of the Global Land Observatory. And I picked 3 slides which resonate very much with the discussion we had today. First, land distribution by tenure regime. Very difficult exercise. Doing in global terms, in terms of comparability, is very difficult. You all know this. But we came up with this graphic using various national sources. You know, this graphic has 2 rings. 2 rings. The first is the inner rings, and then the outer rings. The inner rings say that we have basically 3 tier classification land tenure regime, states, no states, which includes private and customary land and unknown. And from this first ring, the distribution is very much occupied by state land, public land, no? 64%. 26% is about non-state, which is basically in our definition. Then when you will read the report, you will see the methodology. I can't do that this for obvious reason of length of time. Just 80% is customary and 10% is unknown. Now, when it comes to in practice, what is the real land tenure regime, who is really managing that land, the picture is very different. It's 28% public, 20% private, 42 customary, and 10 still unknown. Because many public land is considered, is given under different regimes to customary land, or is considered customary land even by researchers, even if governments are not still recognizing those as customary land. Land inequalities. We develop methodology for measure land inequality. I'm picking some just aspect. This is by share. This is data from agricultural census. This is only agricultural land measured through agricultural census, and the methodology is by share. 10% largest owner and 40% bottom owners. And the inequality is really big. In aggregate terms, is in average terms is 56%. The 10% largest landowners owns 56%. But in aggregate terms, when you weight the country by the size of the landowner population, is much higher. 56 is already very high, but when you do in real terms, is really high. Is 88%, 89%. Sorry. And when you, Olivia, just a minute. When you also take into account by using in this occasion household surveys that have agricultural models in the questionnaires, in which you can identify the document by which the land is owned. When you consider only land owned with strong document and delineation rights, no, what we call strong land rights, then the concentration is still higher. The inequality is still higher. In Africa, especially in Africa, in 3 out of the 13 countries assessed, the top 10% of audience control all documented land, while the bottom 40% have none. Finally, we have discussed this today. There is an increasing trend in large-scale investment by big financial corporation, financial companies, corporation. They account for 70% of large-scale land transactions. And there is a big participation of pension funds in it, and 73% of these entities operate on a shareholder basis. This is a trend which is difficult to detect. It is a box difficult to open to really understand whose the property is, and this is a field of further investigation. Thank you.